In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make the Stephenie bouquet. This is a small to medium sized arrangement. It's a combination of book page roses and paper tea roses. It measures approximately 24 centimetres wide and 25 centimetres tall, which includes the handpiece, which is about 12 to 13 centimetres. There are 6 book page roses in this arrangement and 6 tea roses. 4 of them are in colour 1 and 2 of them are in colour 2. And of course you can choose whatever colours you like to make this arrangement. You could even have all of the tea roses the same colour. You can change the colour of the leaves. It's entirely up to you. There are 12 leaves set around the edge of the flowers. The book page roses have 2 and the tea roses have 1. The handpiece is fully bound in single-sided satin, and I decorate the top of the handpiece with 2 lengths of trailing ribbon. So to make life easier for both myself and for you, I will be referencing the Bouquet Toolkit throughout the whole entire video. The Bouquet Toolkit is a series of 5 videos which detail all of the information that you need to make the book page roses, the coloured paper roses and the leaves. But I will give you all of the specifics for this arrangement in this tutorial. So you can use the timestamps or chapters in this video to watch the part of the video or re-watch a part of the video that you need to watch to learn what you need to learn. So I'll quickly run through the equipment that you need to make this arrangement. You'll need some high-tack glue and some PVA glue, some wallpaper paste, and the link to mix this up is in the video description. You'll need some regular sewing thread, some dark green florist tape, a pair of scissors, some sellotape, a stapler, and some of this Oasis poly ribbon. You can get this in ivory or white, and it's a waterproof ribbon. And I use this to edge the arrangements because it just holds everything nicely in place. You'll need some single-sided satin ribbon. That's always a bit of a tongue twister for me. Anyway, I do find that the single-sided ribbon is much better for wrapping around the stems. You'll also need a dressmaker's pin. It doesn't have to be a fancy one like this, but if you want to add some extra decoration, you could use these. And you'll also need some kitchen foil. In addition to the basic equipment, you'll also need your chosen book. If this is the first time you're making any of my roses, I really do recommend you just use any old book that you can pick up for 50p in the charity shop. You'll also need to download and print off my standard petal template. For this arrangement, we will be using petal templates number 1 and number 2, and leaf template number 1. For the coloured paper, you'll need maybe about 1 sheet of A4, just under 1 sheet of A4 for the leaves. For the tea roses in shade 1, you'll need 3 sheets of A4 paper, and for the tea roses in shade 2, you'll need 2 sheets of A4 paper. I usually use the De La Rowney Canford paper, which is 150 GSM, and it's a matte paper. And on occasion, I'll also use 120 GSM paper. So I'll just summarise the equipment now, and do pause the video if you need to write these down on your shopping list. So in preparation to make this arrangement, we will need to make 12 foil stems. The full instructions to make these foil stems is in part 1 of the Bouquet Toolkit under equipment, and you can just use the timestamps in part 1 to jump to making the foil stems. You'll also need to cut 12 of my standard leaf shapes. And we simply do this by folding the sheet of coloured paper 3 times so we can cut 4 leaves at the same time. It's a bit of a time saver. You can cut them individually if you prefer, but I find that if I fold the paper, bam, done. We'll also need to prepare some ribbon loops, and in this arrangement I use 8. So we simply cut the Oasis ribbon at 25 to 26 centimetres and then use that as a template to cut 3 more strips. Holding the 3 strips together, simply tear them in half. And then all I do at this stage is I just staple the ends together so that we've got our little loops ready. We also want to cut quite a lot of petals. We want to cut 126 minimum book page petals. I use petal template number 1. But if you follow my standard method of cutting the petals, you'll have a few spares, which is essential when you're making any floral arrangement out of books, because sometimes the petals don't have full text on them. It can ruin the effect of the final flower if you haven't got full text on them. So I usually fold my book pages so I cut 8 petals at once. And as a general rule, I'll cut 3 times for 1 rose. And that will give me plenty of spare petals in case I need them. For the coloured paper tea roses, we need 16 petals as a minimum for each tea rose. So depending on the colours that you've chosen for this arrangement, you might have chosen all the same colour, or as is on this arrangement. For shade 1, for the 4, we'll need to cut 64 petals, and for the 2 single tea roses, we'll need to cut 32. And again, it's always useful to have a few spares. You'll be able to find full details for how to cut the petals for the coloured paper tea roses in part 3 of the Bouquet Toolkit. So once all the background prep has been done, on 6 of the foil stems you'll need to make my standard novella rose on foil. This is all detailed in part 2 of the Bouquet Toolkit, and it's a very simple process. As a beginner, your first rose might take a little while to make, but once you're up to speed and you've had a little bit of practice, you should be able to make about 6 to 10 roses in an hour. On the remaining 6 stems, on 2 of them, we want to make tea roses in shade number 2, and on 4 of them, we want to make tea roses in shade number 1. All of the flowers will need to be part bound in florist tape. You can fully bind them if you prefer, but there's no need because this is all going to be covered in the underbinding and the ribbon binding. So assembling this bouquet is a little bit harder than some of my other arrangements because there are quite a few more flowers. And what I normally do is I'll take 2 of the book page roses and nestle them side by side. Join the stems together at about 7 to 9 centimetres on the underside of the roses. Try to keep the top petals level and try to make sure that the petals are not squished. Take the 3rd rose and place it on one side of our pair of roses. What What we're trying to do is we're trying to form a slight arch along the top of the flowers, and we want to adjust rows 3 so its outer petals align with the rows next to it. Add rows 4 on the other side, and again use the florist tape to hold it in place. You can still adjust the roses at this stage to make sure that you have that lovely arch shape. Make sure again that the flower heads are not too close together, because we definitely don't want any squishing going on. Now we can start adding the tea roses. So take one of your tea roses that's in shade number 2, and we want to nestle it in between the centre 2 roses. Do the same for the second tea rose in the same shade on the other side. Wrap the florist tape around to hold it in place, and try to adjust the tea roses so that the outer petals align with the book page petals. We want to now add the other tea roses, and we're going to follow exactly the same process. We're just going to nestle in these ivory roses between the book page roses and hold in place with the florist tape. And the very last step is to nestle each one of the remaining book page roses just next to the coloured tea rose in the centre on both sides. You'll find that you can bend the foil stems and they will hold their shape very well. And before we move on to the next stage, what we want to do is just adjust the positions accordingly by pulling down on the stems at the bottom of the arrangement, or pinching the stems just under the flower heads to pull up. And we really do need to double check and ensure that the petals of all the roses are sitting next to each other in the same kind of arch, so they're symmetrical. So do make sure that you turn the arrangement around and you view it very carefully from all angles. Once you're happy with the overall effect of the flowers, you can trim the stems so that they're all the same length. And then what I'll usually do is apply some florist tape to any of the foil that's showing. The next stage is to add the ribbon loops around the edge of the bouquet. And what we do is we nestle these in between the flowers. So you want the loops to be noticed, but you don't want them protruding too far past the flower heads. So what I normally do is I try to position them so that they're about 1 centimetre to 2 centimetres away from the top of the petals. And we bind them in place with the sewing thread. You could use a glue gun if you prefer, but what I find with using the sewing thread is that it gives me a little bit of play to readjust the loops if I need to, and I can also go back and double check that they're all the same height. If you're using a glue gun, once it's dried, you're pretty much stuck with it. If you need full details on how to add these ribbon loops and for the next stage, which includes binding, all of that is in part 5 of the Bouquet Toolkit. I will reference everything in the description for you, and hopefully that will make life easier. So once you've added the ribbon loops, continue following all of the instructions in the Bouquet Toolkit part 5, and you want to add some underbinding with the Oasis poly ribbon before applying the ribbon binding on top. So to attach the leaves, we want to add 2 of our cut leaves to the book page roses and 1 of the leaves to the tea roses. I like to use the high tack glue for this. I find it is so good at just holding the leaves in place. But it also means if you've placed them in the wrong place, you can still take it off and reapply it. If you're just using PVA glue, you might have to hold it in place for a little while until it becomes tacky. So when I'm applying the single leaves to a tea rose, position it so that it's poking out about 2 or 3 centimetres from the edge of the petal. When attaching the leaves to a book page rose, you want to have 2 coming out at an angle. Try to catch 2 petals, as if you've only caught 1 petal, the weight of the leaf can pull down the individual petal. So the finishing touches on this bouquet are the trailing ribbons, and I'll normally cut for this arrangement about 1.2 metres in 2 different shades of ribbon, and very simply tie it to the handpiece. So I hope that's given you enough information so that you can assemble the Stephenie bouquet yourself. If you've got any questions at all, drop them in the comments below and I will answer them as soon as I see them. Do remember that the Bouquet Toolkit is your best friend in making this arrangement. I have detailed absolutely every single step. So I'll just put a little gallery in at the end here to show you the Stephenie bouquet in various different colours. So if you'd like to have a go at making this arrangement yourself, don't forget to add it to your Watch Later playlist, and then you can easily come back to it. And if you've enjoyed this video, do give me a thumbs up.